Jakub Mielnik, Frost Magazine journalist, is joining us right now. Good afternoon, sir. Delighted to have you with us.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here.
So let me begin by asking you point blank. Some politicians are saying that the current geopolitical situation is a prelude to war. Do you agree with that statement?
Well, we are hearing a lot of talking about the war which is coming. So it's too much to regard it as just a political trick or kind of philosophical figure or just academic discussion. We have an ongoing war just across our border with Ukraine, with the sovereign country attacked by aggressive Russian state. So we have Chinese very active and being much more vigorous and much more brutal in showing their capabilities and trying to take a grip on Taiwan, which is independent from Beijing. So we have a situation burning and boiling in the Middle East. There's a plenty of very difficult points and plenty of crises which someday can accumulate in one big outburst of hostilities. We cannot exclude this kind of developments, and it can happen much sooner than some people just predict.
So now, given the current geopolitical situation that you just described, Wednesday saw the meeting of the Weimar Triangle countries' foreign ministers. How important is it now that there has been a revival of this format in this part of Europe?
Well, this is a positive situation because for recent years this format was basically dead or frozen. So opening the old and functioning platform of discussion and exchanging views and even a cooperation is always a positive outcome. But I wouldn't overestimate the significance of Weimar Triangle in Europe because we still see that key decisions regarding security or foreign policy are still in national capitals and they are taken by national governments. So of course this revival of Weimar Triangle brings some new opportunities, but there is still a lot of hesitancy from certain capitals, and the source of this hesitancy is sometimes very distant from each other. There are different sources of hesitant German chancellor policy toward our security threats, and there are different arguments in Budapest, for example, where Prime Minister Viktor Orban has its own idea how we should, as Europe, deal with the war in Ukraine and Russian aggression on Ukraine. So we have many conflicting sometimes centers, and they are still still have a more power and more voice and more decision making capabilities than those supranational forums. But it's good. It's good to have a platform which was not existent for several years until now.
So speaking of the Weimar Triangle, let's take a closer look at the France-Germany relationship and sort of what are they saying, because people say that we're all sort of on the same page when it comes to support for Ukraine, but then if you look at some of the details, it doesn't seem to be the case. For instance, Emmanuel Macron said that he's not ruling out putting boots on the ground, right, European boots on the ground in Ukraine. Of course, Olaf Scholz is opposing this. Then also we have the issue of the Taurus missiles, right? He doesn't want to send these. So where does Germany stand in comparison to France when it comes to Ukraine's policy?
Well, it's not easy answer to this question, despite the fact that it looks like we have a more proactive French government and a little bit more passive or actually very passive German government. That's how it looks like from the outside. But if we go deeper into details, it doesn't look so simple, and I would like to explain it in few words. First of all, of course, German Chancellor made many mistakes and has a lot of problems with admitting that long-term German policy was a failure, which partly brought us to this crisis situation in the East we have right now. But at the same time, Germany, of course, they are denying some types of weapon to Ukrainians. But at the same time, they are one of the world leaders in financing Ukrainian resistance to Russian invasion. On the contrary, French president likes to talk a lot, very important and very strong sounding words. But if we count the French capabilities in strict numbers of millions of billions of euro spent on the war in Ukraine, so looks like French president have more to say than to spend, and France is on the bottom of the list of European countries involved in helping Ukraine. But again, another twist is that if French offers something to Ukrainians, these are really meaningful and really important support from like artillery, some missile capabilities, and so on and so on. So and on the other hand, Germany is spending a lot of money, but not all of that cash is going to something which improves efficiency of Ukrainian army on a field.
And now I'd like to ask, as we are speaking about security and deterrence, in light of Wednesday's Russia's unilateral announcement that it was seeking to redefine its maritime borders with the Baltic Sea, do you think that this maybe has anything with the fact that Putin might have his eyes set on the island of Gotland, which now, after Finland and Sweden have joined NATO, is in the NATO lake?
Yeah, that's a part of Russian way of thinking, but it's also some broader problem here. Russians are trying to test NATO and alliance capabilities to be vigilant and to resist any confrontation, any attempts to create some provocation and so on. So they are looking for any means to test how strong we are as a NATO, and as we see with this idea of rewriting maritime borders on the Baltic Sea, we see that those methods are quite sophisticated. From what I know, that there was just a kind of balloon sent from Moscow because they just announced that they are regarding to make these corrections, but at the end of the day, the government just withdraw this proposal, and then they just keep it somewhere in a fridge of governmental buildings in Moscow. So this is kind of message to us as a NATO alliance that they have means and they have excuses to look for some kind of setups which can create some pretty provocative and dangerous situation on the border between NATO and Russian Federation.
Yes, it was certainly bizarre, because then the post was deleted and some statements were issued. I mean, very, very bizarre behavior. However, it did provoke strong reactions from countries such as Lithuania and more moderate from Finland. In any case, I wanted to take a closer look at Poland and its sort of position both within the Weimar Triangle, but also within NATO. And what can we expect when we look at the Polish foreign policy towards Ukraine? There could be changes, right, when it comes to Polish ambassador to NATO ahead of the upcoming NATO summit in DC. So do you think there will be some changes to Poland's policy? What does the future hold?
Well, the fight, political fight about who is going to be a next Polish ambassador to NATO is a purely domestic politics problem, and I'm not expert on that, so I don't want to discuss this particular part of the story. But I hope that our policy to Ukraine and Russian aggression against Ukraine will not change, and as we see and as we have seen for the last couple of months, it hasn't changed even in very sensitive topics which are not directly connected with the Ukraine and war on Ukraine, but they are for sure Polish security issue versus Russian attempts to make some kind of troubles. I mean, border with Belarus. There were a lot of expectations that the new Polish government will change harsh measurements which are stopping illegal migration organized by Belarusian and Russian secret services to create chaos and instability on the border, and we see that the government is keeping the guard high, and Prime Minister of Poland is announcing extra funds to make this border more sealed and more controlled. So it shows that priorities cannot be a part of it, and this is a very positive and very good situation in which some key security issues are excluded from the daily political fight on a domestic political scene. So that's really good, and this is like the victory of Ukraine is also a prosperous and safe future for Poland. So I cannot imagine any politician in Poland who could try to reverse this direction of foreign policy of Poland.
Right, and while we're discussing Polish policies, let's take a closer look at the Eastern Shield.
Yeah, there was a question, or we are literally going to take a look at it.
And I mean, sort of at some of the details, some of the provisions. How will that be introduced? Right? What are the steps and sort of?
Well, I'm not expert on details how it's going to be implemented, and I'm sure that key details are just secret, just for efficiency of this enterprise. So would be surprised if we could float those details easily. Publicly. Of course, this is something which cannot be excluded from domestic politics and upcoming European election, where key political rivals in Poland are fighting for a title of best defender of security of Poles. So we cannot also avoid the question if spending 3 billion euro for a border fence, which is already in place and seems like it's sealed and it works, is something more than just a part of an election campaign. I wouldn't mind to have this money spent on some armaments, buying weapons, new equipments, modern high-tech equipments, which are much more useful in stopping Russian incursions and keeping them at bay. But these are considerations which have to measure between between political goals and hard security goals, and these are also compromises, some kind of middle roads between cashing on not literally cashing, but cashing on vote numbers and delivering real outcome in terms of security.
One thing we can certainly agree on, preparedness is crucial, right? It's a crucial aspect to deter, right?
Any possible adversary, of course. Well, Mr. Jakub Mielnik, journalist from Wprost, thank you very much for your insight here today on TVP World.
Thank you very much for having me here again. I will repeat it again. Thank you.